Hi there. I want to respond to this comment. It says, I don't think that Black women are looking for love, though. I think they're looking for exposure on television, and there's nothing wrong with that. I agree. And I agree that there's nothing wrong with looking for exposure on television. Um, However, I think, and again, I kind of spoke about this a little bit, but I didn't go into detail on the first video. It's like, I'm not sure about, everything that goes on behind the scenes. And when Black women go on television shows, it's a bigger message. It's not just for the women who go on the shows that are getting harmed. It is also for the young women and girls who are watching the shows that are getting harmed. They're also internalizing messages from the show, and I'll go into that. Young girls, young guys, young boys, whatever, are watching these shows and they're internalizing the messages, like, especially for Black people. You got to think, like, how many representations of love do we have being modeled for us outside of our parents that we readily have access to? Parents, maybe grandparents, aunts and uncles, maybe, but a lot of kids just have their parents, and then they're turning to the television to to pick up on social and behavioral cues. And where are they getting that from? They're getting that from music videos. They're getting that from music. They're getting that from just these television shows. And so Black women and girls are looking to this. If you think about yourself as a Black woman or as a Black girl, what was the first show or movie that you saw about a Black woman um, looking for love or getting loved on? And what did that representation of love look like for you? What is most of the content that you consume around Black women getting loved on? I mean, when you look at Hollywood, when you look at other shows, you see a plethora of shows and videos and things like that of white people getting loved on, where the woman in the main character, she's always finding her prince, albeit there may be different messages there that we can sort of pick apart and examine, but you still see other women, other cultures, Bollywood and things like that. They have their own production. These folks have, you still see a representation of women getting love. Whereas for our shows, we're kind of chasing, we're looking desperate. And again, going back to the whole behind the scenes, I'm not sure. Yes, they may be looking for exposure. So I'll go back. One of the shows that I saw was Flavor of Love, and I remember this because New York Tiffany Pollard was giving an interview recently, and she was talking about how she came to be on the show Flavor of Love. And so she was like, she was minding her business, going to some store, whatever. And some guy approached her and was like, I want to make you famous. You're the right type of person to make famous. She didn't really buy into it, but he like really talked her up. He gassed her up. She really wasn't like feeling it like that, but he gassed her up into it. And then she got on the show, and then it was like this whole thing, but she really had feelings for Flav, right? So she came in with a different intent, and again, she was sort of pushed into it. It wasn't something that she was looking for. They went out, they recruited her for this, right? And so she got in there, and it was very clear that, even all these years later, I think it was pretty clear that New York was the only person that loved Flav, right? I think that's pretty clear. Even all these years later, I had no business watching that, when it came out because I was younger, but whatever. But watching it as an older person, when you watch it when you're younger and when you watch it when you're older, it's like you're watching two different shows. Because when you watched it, it was like, when you were younger, it might have been entertaining, and it was just like, I love New York, I love Flav, and I think it's a great show, and she's so funny, and she's this and she's that. But when you watch it back when you're older, New York was the show. Let's be honest. But I think there's another major theme that came out of that for me as an adult is like, yes, it's clear that she loved Flav, but two, it's also clear that he didn't love her back and that he was never going to love her back. And I think he gaslit her and he used her for that. And I'm not sure if and when that ever became apparent to her on that show, is that he was using at a certain point, he was using her. He was getting all the benefits of her, like having sex and, doing all this stuff and like, hearing about all the other girls in the house and whatever. But he was never going to get with her. And I think he was never going to get with her for the simple fact that she wasn't white. And if you look at Flavor Flav, he's not dating anyone who's not white. And just pure and simple. And so he clearly used her, but I'm not sure if she ever recognized that. I've never heard her speak about it, and it's not like, I follow her or anything. So it's possible that she may have spoken about it, and I just don't know. But I think, again, there's all these different things. It's like you're hired for a job. You don't know what to expect, but you're hired after they recruit you and they promise you the world. And I don't think there's anything wrong with women who are looking for exposure. There's not. And, people, unfortunately in America, we have to, we don't get too many opportunities as Black women to have exposure on a national level. It's really hard. Even if you look at social media platforms, you know, no matter what type of message you're going to send out, it's social media has bias. They're not going to push Black women, Black persons content as much as they push others, right? White persons, Asian persons. It's just the statistics are there. You can see it. You could Google it. If you don't believe me, it will tell you in plain English. So exposure is one thing, but I think the harm that you get once you're in there and you start seeing that things aren't going to play out in your favor, I think that, when you think about New York, she had to go through a breakup and humiliation on television, which was devastating. For most women, they kind of go through that, at home behind closed doors, and it is devastating to anybody that goes through that. But then, when you're on TV, the cameras are rolling. They want to catch that moment. They want to catch those tears, and they want to see you humiliated on TV. And she kind of went through it again. How many of you have went back to an ex only to be duped again, right? And that happened to her on live television, and the cameras were rolling. But I think it's a bigger message than just the women on television. The message is also very clear for young Black girls, young Black boys who are watching this mess. That message shows that you can degrade a woman. You could be proud, because how many accolades does Flav still get? How cool does Flav still get to be after he humiliated New York on television, not once but twice, and throughout their career, right? And she still, for a long time, was still chasing him on and off camera, at least from the interviews that I've seen. And I love her, and I think she's great. But I think I know she deserves better than that, because she went hard. But I also think, more importantly, the young girls, the young boys, the women, the men at home who are sitting at home watching this and consuming this, who actually have true desires of love and connection, they need better representation. They also need better models of what love looks like. They need better models, better representation of what standards look like. And, name a show, name a movie that accurately portrays a Black woman, Black men getting healthy love as a Black couple together. Name one. And unfortunately, I think the message is Black entertainment has saved Hollywood and things like that. So look up the whole, if you don't believe me, look up the whole reason for Black exploitation films back in the 70s. Hollywood was going kaput, and they specifically made Black content to rescue Hollywood. So I definitely think that that also may be the propaganda that black content does now, is to rescue Hollywood, but at our own expense.